Hello, everybody. Hope all is well. Hope your summer has gone well. Luckily, we have a good 14 days left to enjoy summer after all this stuff ends. So, this is the last class. I wanted to cover chapter 13. Some of it might be good to go over for the self reflection. Um, but most importantly, keeping everything open so that you can turn it all in and make sure you've got it turned in before grades being due on Monday. So everything most certainly is open. You guys have the ability to um, work with that, and I will be looking at everything. If you did need it incomplete, absolutely go ahead and get in contact with me. That gives you like 6 more weeks to do everything if you do need it. So, um, that being said, we do have the last of um, social work and aging, and then social work and youth. So I wanted to cover that. Um, and then send you off so you can finish these up. So, services for adults, social workers do infertility counseling, caregiving for aging parents, bereavement counseling, employee assistance, services for military veterans and personnel. So, for family caregiving, they found that about 31% of those over 18 provide unpaid care. So, they talk about that as the sandwich generation. Many circumstances require caregiving. Um, the consequences are your emotional distress related to the burden of care, lost productivity, and other employment costs. So, a lot of times, social workers, even in hospice, we do social work case management, also counseling and emotional support. So, being there for the family, counseling and crisis intervention is more for the military social workers, and that could be even older veterans, also surveying the troops to identify problems and issues, and then working in rehabilitation services. Um, the VA, which does this the most frequently, actually pays the best, and you probably do need a master's to get it, but 80, 90,000 a year. Military social workers also do organizing in community activities, and they support on the military bases, also referrals for health and mental health services. The EAP, which is Employee Assistance Program, it has origins of occupational social work, and the programs of services are the EAP is a employee assistance program, MAP is members assistance program, and that's where a lot of referrals come for counseling of the families. So the range of services would be like family issues, burnout, addictions, organizational planning and development, community service options, workplace issues and sexual minorities, pre retirement planning, and then IPV, intimate partner violence. That's a big issue that's covered, and there's different types. You want to be trained in the dynamics of that. As a social worker, know about the Violence Against Women's Act, some of the TANF exceptions, and even service responsibilities. Also, knowing that there is violence among sexual minorities, and if they have kids, what their children's reactions are, because it can help affect kids in many ways, like the trauma. Um, Another trauma is elder abuse, so the different types being physical, psychological, and sexual abuse. Um, Financial exploitation, so maybe they're taking care of them, but in charge of their money and finances and checks. Abandonment, similar to like a kid that you're responsible to care give for, and then even neglect or self neglect. And that's what a social worker would go to investigate in those. Um, a few others social service responses, and elder abuse. We have public education and training, so like you would be aware of it. We have supports for groups and caregivers, support groups for the caregivers, adult daycare, multidisciplinary service teams, so covering all of those. So by 8 years from now, almost a fifth of the population will be 65 and older. And right now, 85 plus is the fastest growing subgroup. So that is the new average age of a woman to live into the mid 80s and beyond. Percentage of ethnic minority elders are increasing with better health care. There's worldwide trends. A lot of people are living longer. Now, this was written before coronavirus and even some of the opioid epidemic. So there is not as much growth as there was in 2016, 2019. And then as a social worker, teaching them how to do successful aging. Some of the services for older adults, there are challenges for the social workers. You also want to assess the personal attitudes, aging, illness, and death. You want to counteract ageism and negative stereotypes. Also, learn the impact of gender and ethnic diversity on aging, and know how to work collaboratively. So that's big. Nowadays, there's even a specialty area, so the gerontological social work. They have social supports for healthy older adults. There's community services for those who are frail, institutional services for those who can't live on their own, and things of that nature. Some examples of the programs and services, you have case management, adult daycare centers, respite services. They offer these at hospice also. Nursing home, multi-purpose senior centers, civic engagement initiatives, and then supportive services for aging in place. Some other resources for older adults they list in Chapter 14 in the table about nutrition, housing, and legal services, even transportation. Case managers, they help assess needs and link clients with appropriate programs like meal services or even housing or a ride or adult daycare centers. So those are some of the adult ones. I also wanted you to cover families and youth. So contemporary family forms, we do have some single parent families. If they do remarry, we have blended families, gay and lesbian families, multi-generational families, and grandparent-headed families. And that's the research I've done since I worked at Miami University called Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. That's a big one. Some of the family services, you've got counseling for families, individuals, and groups, family life education, financial assistance, employee assistance again, and advocacy. Some of the pressing issues are domestic violence, poverty, addiction, the family structures. If there's a remarriage, sometimes they don't like stepdad, so that causes stress and other communication patterns that could be problematic. Now, if there is child maltreatment, historically, they've handled it differently. More social workers have gotten involved recently to try to get them treatments they need. Social workers should know the legal definition, types of child abuse and neglect, incidents of child maltreatment, even the contributing factors so you can know for prevention, psychological effects, and sexual abuse. Some of the legislation, and there is a ton of this. We have Child Abuse and Prevention Act, Indian Child Welfare Act, Adoption and Assistance, and Child Abuse and Treatment Act. And then Foster Care Dependents Act, Adoption and Safe Families Act, Foster Care, and Omnibus Reconciliation Act, and Family Preservation Support Services. The last few, keeping children and families safe, fostering connections, and they put the whole list for you in Table 13.1. So they also have a good diagram to show how Child Protective Services case works through the system. So look at that, especially if you want to get involved in working with families and children. Um, and know that there is a specialty also for school social workers now. Usually you get that at the master's level. With school social work, you'll provide supportive services for children and families in the context of school settings, provide linkage between school and home and community. Also, there's some examples of services from Chapter 13. Usually you'll do an assessment, so assess the children with special education needs, even early developmental screening and support for developmental transitions if they're moving on. Some other services you may provide if you work at, say, a lighthouse, which I did for a while: teen pregnancy, adolescent suicide, runaway youth. We had a shelter for 13 to 19-year-olds at Lighthouse, and then even eating disorders. It doesn't mention addictions as much, but that's a big one. And the last slide I wanted you to have for your final self-reflection paper, if you write about this, resiliency in adolescence. So you've got social competence, problem-solving skills, autonomy, and a sense of purpose and future is what you would like to give them. School climate of high expectations, and the community support. So I know we had a quick summer. Hopefully you guys are able to get everything done over the weekend. I'll leave it all open and turn in. If not, please do contact me and I'll sign you up for the incomplete. So talk to you all soon and have a good weekend.